Hello, everyone, and welcome. Happy Monday. You might think it's a Friday because we have Noah Hamman back on, but it is Monday. Thanks for starting your week off with us. Really appreciate it. We're going to talk through what is going on in the market, talk about Noah's fishing trip, talk about a whole host of things. I will say, good reminder, if you don't already know, you're very welcome to join the conversation. You can put in any questions, comments, anything you want to say in the chat. We take them on every platform except for Instagram. Hey, Stevie, great to see you. Happy Monday. Welcome back.
Quiet voice today.
It's waking up.
All right.
Still waking up. Yeah. How are you doing? How are you coming back from stuff? I feel like I touched on very briefly your trip, but I have not heard the full details, the full breakdown.
I did go to Montana. Got to take your former head of shipping with me, and then met one of your favorite guests, Leif Meidel. So him and a few other guys, of which these two guys, both jet pilots in the Navy. And so one guy, which is pretty cool, I'm sure you've seen the movie Top Gun, right?
I have.
And so Top Gun is a jet pilot, and he goes to Top Gun school. And I forget, what was the guy's name? He was like a call sign of the teacher of the class. Was that Jester or that someone else? I don't know. Anyways, this guy was the teacher of Top Gun, or is the teacher of Top Gun.
Nice.
Which is awesome. So we did 3 days of fly fishing out in Missoula. So day of travel, 3 days there on the water, and then heading back home.
Nice. Well, Marguerite and I had some bets on how much fish you guys caught. Because to me, the fishing experience is very much hanging out, having a beer, casting a line. Does it have a worm on it? Who knows? It's just sort of hanging out and drinking, but cannabis is legal there now.
Worm fishing.
Or I don't know.
Fly fishing.
Oh shoot. Well, whatever. That's how much I know exactly. But I still think it holds true. How much did you guys catch? Because I think I bet 4, she bet 0.
For me?
For you.
So I fish quite a bit, right? Sure. When we're in Delaware, if there's the opportunity, I mean, sometimes just goofing around on the water, but more often than not, fishing. Nice. And the answer will vary depending on who you're talking to, right? Because luck and skill, of course, comes into play. All of that is just to say, and here's another important thing to remember too. So this is fly fishing, which I'd only done once before, right? There's a bit of a technique, right? Because it's that long, wispy, and that's a heavy line. And then there's about, 3 or 4 feet of a real thin, clear line, and you have a fly tied to the end of it. And the goal is really just to have the fly land right on top of that water, far enough away that as you're coming near them, right? So if you got close, the fish will get spooked. So you're trying to get that line way out there in the spots where you think there might be fish that are eating. And these, of course, are fish that aren't bottom feeders, like a catfish or something like that. They aren't sort of in between, like tuna or mahi, right, which you can catch in the water in the ocean. These are more like trout. These are things that get a lot of their food off the top of the water. See that? That's how they do it, by the way.
Fair enough. The catfish did make me want to ask, have you been noodling before?
What is that? Is that
where you fish with your hand
in the ground?
Yeah.
No,
I okay.
Not. That does not seem pleasant at all.
Okay.
But I have caught a few catfish in my life.
Okay.
And so there's a real trick and a knack to it. And, and this is the river, and we're moving through it. And in fact, I think one of the places we fished at, though I don't remember which one. I don't know if it was the Bitterroot River. Is it Bitterroot? Something like that. And then, or Blackfoot River. Okay. But one of them was the scene for filming some of the movie of A River Run Through It, right? If that sounds familiar. Yeah. But so beautiful scenery, beautiful place. I'd only fly fishing once before. And so you have these guides with you that'll help you, figure things out. And so for me, each day, the real challenge was I going to lose more flies or catch more fish? And depending on the day, I think day 1, it was flies 6, fish 1.
Okay.
On the second day, it was like flies 3 for me, fish, 6 or 7, maybe even 8 that day.
Okay.
Most of these little white fish, we didn't keep anything. We put everything back.
Sure. And
then the last day, I was probably 3 flies, and 0 fish.
What a range.
Conversely, David, who's hanging out in my boat, because it's 2 persons, like these little floaty boats. Well, one was like an inflatable. The others were, I call them almost skiff-like, but pretty small. But they've got a little setup where you sit up high, but you can also stand up and then lean into this thing molding that's built into the boat. and cast out. And so it's 2 people on a boat, and it really does vary, because the first day I think David caught, I don't know, 6, 7, or 8.
Whew.
The second day, I think the kid caught like 30.
Whew.
I mean, every like 10 minutes, I got it. I got another one. Got another one.
That's gotta make you proud. I feel like that's,
well,
great.
he's a good fisherman, guy. And so the part that I was holding back on the story, because I was trying to, throw you off the scent a little bit when I said, I fish a lot.
Sure.
But what you probably don't know, because I don't talk about it a lot, is I have the worst luck catching fish. And I say luck or skill. You can say either one. Mm-hmm. But again, and more often with David, I'm fishing in the same spot with the same lures and the same bait and the same whatever.
Yeah.
And for me to actually catch the fish. So the good news is I'm not bad luck for other people to catch fish, but I'm certainly bad luck for myself.
Good luck for the fish, though. They're probably loving it. You come around, they're like,
sometimes they like to get out and say hello and like, and then you got to throw them back in before they.
That's nice. You return them. That's at least. Oh, okay. Good question from Baz. Any ospreys? I feel like they're big around.
Several. And what's prevalent all over the place? I say several. I saw a couple, I believe. And then at least along the rivers, swallows. So as you look up along the canyons, and I saw these little hives, because I actually thought they were like wasp or hornet nests, but they looked unusually big for a wasp or hornet nest. But those things can get big. Mm-hmm. But then it was all these circles, and so it turns out swallows all sort of mate and then jump, and they also get I think bugs off the water and then fly back up. And it can be a little sketchy as you there's some overhang through some of these rivers that you go through, and you look up and you see the swallow nest. And the guide gave some important advice of don't look up with your mouth open, because they'll just take a big poop.
Oh, horrible. That
didn't happen to me, but it was great advice. And there was a ton of those flying around. So the weather was a bit weird. It was actually chilly the first couple of days. I was kind of bundled up on there. And then the third day was definitely warmer. Mm-hmm. But beautiful area. I've never hung out in Montana. I don't even think I've been to a city in Montana. Maybe I've driven through it.
I was going to ask, I know cannabis is finally available now.
So I'll tell you what, the first thing I learned about Montana as a state, it should be the one that's called Live Free or Die, not New Hampshire, because those guys suck and can't even pass cannabis. No offense to you New Hampshireans, but your politicians aren't very good.
Offense to them.
Anyways, that's the first thing I realized. First of all, there's casinos on every corner.
Yeah.
I didn't go into them. I just didn't have time. But there's no way they were like big gaming casinos. I'm assuming it's all electronic or something like that, because I'm telling you, there'll be a gas station with like a little casino next to it. Huh. So I saw everything. It was fireworks. I saw, there was definitely a lot of gun shops. One gun shop had like a M16 rifle, as like a sign on the out front, a big one. So it was fireworks, firearms.
Sure.
Cannabis all over the place. Okay. Casino all over the place. The highways are 80 miles an hour posted, right? Which means people are probably doing 100.
Yeah.
What else? There was another one. Of course, booze, was fine. But like all the stuff, all the vices. True. If there was a place that you would target the vice strategies.
Yeah. But true American freedom, unbridled sort of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. All right. Well, if we were talking vacation spots on Friday, if people are looking up places, I feel like, there's so much in the U.S. If you're already here, you don't have to worry about passports. You don't have to worry about, a lot of stuff.
Very nice. Met some interesting people who've been doing this kind of work for a long time. Young guy, older guy. Nice. They just love the outdoors, and it's sort of interesting to hear their story. In fact, the guy, Bob, the main guy, I think who owned this outfitting place that we worked with, actually born here. So his dad worked in the national parks industry. Sure. So he lived in Rockville. He grew up going out to Thurmont, where we've been fishing before.
Sure.
And a few other places, Cumberland and things like that. So he's very familiar with areas where, David had fished before as well. So it was just a ton of fun to meet these guys and hang out with them. And Leif, of course, people know here. Mm-hmm. Fantastic dude, also military background. So it was actually nice too, because I got to have David hear some of Leif's stories of being an Apache helicopter pilot and all of that. And so and some really crazy stories from the other jet pilot guys. So it was awesome week.
That sounds awesome. All right, fantastic. Well, I'm glad. Do you feel refreshed, rejuvenated, ready to get back into the crazy world of cannabis investing? The market. I know it's sort of been quieter.
Saying refreshed. Wow. I mean, the funny thing is, I was tired each day, even though I didn't do anything. But just standing on that thing, and you know, we were on there for like 6-7 hours on the water each day. So you're standing on the whole thing. You stop and take a break at lunch. And then I was off on the time zone. And then the other weird thing is, it's like light outside till past 9, just past 9.
Yeah, summer,
which is awesome, but also just different. And so I think the timing stuff got me all off kilter. And then when you're only there for a few days, it's just hard to get acclimated, and then you're flying back home. So
extend next time. That's the lesson, I guess, ultimately.
I stayed at my first Airbnb. Now, Leif is the one that rented it. I didn't actually book it, but
breaking news.
I know.
That's exciting. I think, again,
and I didn't get murdered.
See, I feel like, again, it's good to try new things, and Airbnb is definitely one of them. They got a ton of great spots. All right. I've seen some good question from Baz on cannabis side of things.
Rescheduling is coming, Baz. Yes. Even though I know, and we can maybe skip this until later or talk now if you want, this whole Chevron issue. Yes. I know some have questioned whether or not Schedule 3 could be in jeopardy because of that. And of my limited reading on it, so emphasizing limited reading here, emphasizing that I'm not a lawyer, I see it differently. And I see it differently, I think, in a good and positive way for the cannabis industry. So I think from my perspective, it feels like I don't see anything changing Schedule 3. If there's a switch out, did you guys talk about the debate on Friday?
We did, which I'd love to hear again if you have any other lingering thoughts and feelings on it.
My lingering thought is
it sucked.
People should be allowed to age gracefully.
Yeah.
And regardless of what, people think he's done or not done or whatever, it was a tough one to see. Yes. And it's not new news, right? It's not like we're surprised that was the case, but I think in that moment, on that stage, and without maybe the tools, teleprompters and other things like that can help, right? I don't think they could even bring their notes. They could write notes, but they couldn't bring prepared notes.
Yeah. I will say it was painful. I know it's not anything necessarily new for people, but I do think it was interesting, seeing him a little bit later. He did seem to have a little bit more pep and energy. He seemed particularly lacking energy, which was a bit tough, I guess, ultimately. But
yeah, so that was a tough one. I'll tell you what I did enjoy is that style of debate in terms of
the mute.
Yes. Because you could hear what people were saying and no audience and people screaming and cackling at stuff. Like I want to hear the question asked, and kudos to the moderators, right? Even though I know they're highly, at least seemingly personally slanted against Trump, they seemingly would ask both very direct questions. They seemingly would, well, at least with Trump, I recall one where they're like, "You didn't really answer the question. Let me ask you again."
The January 6th one, which was a big one, I think, was one of the ones that they tried to re-clarify on, and he also just
and then
was like,
they re-clarify stuff when I didn't think they needed to, right? Because I think it was Dana Bash who was like, if we have this election and it's determined that it's a free and fair election, will you stand by the results? And he's like, of course, whatever. Yeah. He said something first in his Trump sort of way, and then he says, of course, and then it goes on to talk.
He did qualify by saying if it's a legitimate election. So,
but she said that too, right? His qualification was the same as hers. And then I feel like sometimes just more for show, she says, well, you didn't really answer it. Will you accept the outcome of the election? And then she didn't have that same caveat and disclosure that she did the first time she asked it.
Sure.
And then I think he said it again, right? If it's whatever, free and fair and whatever.
But he didn't think the last one was. So I feel like it means almost nothing.
I wish he would have been honest and said, we're both going to cheat our asses off and we'll see who's better at cheating at the end of the day. But
yeah, that's fair, I guess. See. Yeah.
But I love the format because you could hear the answers. I felt horrible for the current president. And so the point being, though, as we talked about that, I got on that tangent a little bit, which was I don't see anything changing with Schedule 3, only because I don't know that I genuinely see there being some change with Biden and who's running, which in so many ways seems crazy. But I don't see him backing down. He seemingly is raising all the money. So if you're going to put someone in, I don't think you can just take this politician's money that they've raised, right? I mean, the DNC raises a certain amount of money, but he raises specific money. And so he's been raising money, currently raised money. I think I read somewhere he came off the debate and raised a lot of money. So I don't know, how you slot someone in there and get the funding that you need, deal with the drama of the switch, and then what kind of switch is it? Are you bringing someone in that's keeping the current vice president or not? Where does she stand on all this? She probably wants to step up to the mantle. I don't blame her, right? You've been acting as vice president. I'd raise my hand and say, I'll go. Give me a go.
Sure. I did see, for anyone who watches Veep out there, somebody had made a very funny tweet saying the most sort of Veep related thing that could possibly happen is if Biden were to pass away as we're going, but Trump does win. She gets to be president as the first female president, but for like a month.
A month. Oh my God, that would be crazy.
That'd be horrible. Yeah. I'll have to see.
But so I don't.
Of it.
I'm not smart enough to know what is the path in which there's a change and what does that mean? Because there's egos and money and all this stuff involved, and we are inching closer to election day. I don't even know when is the caucuses and when do they certify who their nominee is?
I think it's coming up, but it definitely has happened. That's why they were saying they're doing an early. I should know that. Let me do a quick.
But they kept. I feel like I've read that too. Like it was either a mistake on Trump's part to accept the early debate, request. It was maybe the DNC or whoever, behind getting Biden out there early to give them time to make a change. But I thought all this came up from a Howard Stern interview where he asked Biden or someone if he was going to debate Trump, and he said, yeah, I'll do it, whatever. And then it became open, and then they were like, let's pick a date, but you got to do it on my terms. And Trump said, fine. Like, I didn't get the impression this was pre-planned from the DNC. I thought I recall it sort of came up, haphazardly, but I could be wrong.
I mean, I feel like there's nothing truly haphazard, but then also I guess ultimately people who are running are just people and are, vulnerable to being emotional and leaning into sort of that weird competitive / I don't know, sort of strange thing. So I don't know. We'll see. I also can't find the date.
Yeah. So it's crazy. But anyway, so if there's a change there, then all cards are off the table, I think, in terms of Schedule 3. Though I can't practically see whoever would come in to replace him thinking this is what they want to change, right? If you want to see a risk to Schedule 3,
thank you.
You could argue it's with Trump, but even there, it seems pretty clear. We know what his policy is. I did not know the information that I was reading in Marijuana Moment that he didn't like the fact that Sessions had rescinded the Cole memo.
Yeah.
So that was new news, and that seemed to be verified information, right? So then that gives me a lot of optimism, right? I mean, one, in general, I feel like we've been operating, if Trump wins, it sounds like it's kind of status quo with all things cannabis. Maybe things don't move even further, more aggressively, but status quo. Certainly if Biden wins, I think it's definitely status quo. Maybe if not, they would then be willing to push at some point. Yeah, just pull it. So I don't know. Right now, where I sit, I don't see changes coming for Schedule 3. I see it probably sticking on track. I see whether it's Biden or anyone else that would replace him, definitely wanting to keep it in place. So, yeah, I don't see a scenario where it changes.
Yeah. And I guess we're 3 weeks out roughly from the end of the comment period. So that's humming along. We're close there. We're finally in July.
Which is a reminder, we got to make sure we get our letter in so that our voice is heard.
That is true. Democracy, you got to participate.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. That's interesting. Well, on the investing side, any thoughts, anything that's been interesting? We're looking at volume on Friday, definitely higher. I know we've talked about the summer getting a little bit quieter.
Oh
but
my God, right? Those 3 days when I was gone, I don't know what you guys did. And first I was like, I'm never coming back, right? Because Wednesday was awesome. Thursday was awesome. And I'm like, this is it. I'm never, because, there's been times in this company's history where, I don't know, again, it's my luck, but I'll be out of town and then we'll just raise assets like crazy. And people are just like, don't come back. Don't come back. Oh, no. So being gone, and I saw Wednesday and Thursday's action, I'm like, all right, this is awesome. Like, I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm the jinx for prices. And then I saw Friday and I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, damn.
Yeah.
Right?
Pretty tough.
And when I looked at those numbers, I remember seeing some comments, at least online, about where, are we talking product in this session? Can I make sure tickers or not?
Don't have to. We haven't so far. So if you want to keep it going.
Well, one of the most popular one we have didn't trade so efficiently at the end of the day, and it traded a bit of a discount. So, we had a sense that would be reflected in the opening prices the next day. And I did sort of see that, right? When you saw the results at the end of the day, where the 1X version was versus the 2X.
Leveraged.
Yeah, it wasn't quite perfect, but it had to do with the discount. But anyways, the numbers were just freaking bloodbath. So, So yeah,
unfortunate, but again, I think it's one of those things. No surprises. Volatility will continue.
It will continue, right? Yeah. And if you want to trade a space, and you want to trade a space that has, more liquidity in terms of what these stocks of these size might normally have, which, still it's only micro cap type of liquidity, but maybe better than average, I think. It's very tradable, which is crazy. And it makes it for such a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
So I think the only other news I saw, one of the competitors is moving their fee to zero, right? I thought that was interesting. That's never a good sign in terms of the longevity for a product, but more power to them if that works. I feel like in my history, I think it's been two things. One, there's this concept of, low price wins, right? So Vanguard wins. They raise all the assets because they're the lowest price.
Sure.
I don't know that I entirely believe that, but I certainly believe if you are big, pricing your stuff low, right, to squeeze out the competition, and especially smaller players like us, it's a real structural advantage they have, right? And so for me, I never know what really came first. Was it you can get performance just paying low fees and taking a passive approach? Or you've got to charge a little bit higher fees if you're a smaller shop, right? Because you can't live at the same margins those firms can, which means that if you're charging higher fees, it hits on performance. And so then that basically becomes, the challenge that you have, especially for us, being active, trying to find that performance, trying to charge what you need to charge, right? From a business perspective and margins, it just can't be all the same. It can't be the same as gigantic multi-trillion-dollar companies. So I don't know. My view has always been size has been that pricing advantage, which helps in performance and then gives you growth. If you start off saying, let's say you just hold a whole lineup of ETFs and said, I'm going to charge zero fees. Odds are that company would be out of business in a year or two or three. And we've seen that happen before. I know I've seen it happen in the ETF space. I think it was like Focus Shares or something that actually got bought out by Scott Trade at one point, and they had Morningstar themed indexes. So, you got a great brand at Morningstar. I think they came out at nothing or next to nothing for their lineup of ETFs, the whole thing. I didn't raise anything. And it's because of at least I believe it's because of my view of low prices isn't the driver for AUM. You've got to have a compelling product, compelling story. You either have to have that size advantage to take advantage of being able to, live off of lower margins. So when I see that happen, I think, that means they're getting close, and I don't know that they're going to see the results that they hope to see from doing something like that.
That's fair. I think
wish them luck.
Ultimately, trying to throw things at the wall to see kind of what sticks, which I get, you need to make a change at some point, and that makes sense. But I know also kind of introducing the kind of mixed blend of themes as well versus sort of that.
And I know for us, it'll be the opposite, right? If we're lucky enough to go back to seeing more growth as you get, past multiple trillions. Or trillions, billions. Sorry, trillions would be awesome.
That'd be great.
Can you imagine that?
Gazillion? Sure.
Anyways, we will do something similar, right? We'll do breakpoints on the management fee. I don't think there's a breakpoint now on MS.
It's okay. Rocking it with it. It's
I pulled it back.
Okay.
I pulled it back.
It
could be any one of our products.
That's true.
Anyways, we don't have breakpoints on that.
I don't know about that. You did such a great job, though.
But as it grows, we will definitely put it on, right? And so I think that's, to me, the way, especially smaller companies have to do it. People have to demonstrate they want to be in the product. And then if you can get that with size, then at some point, absolutely, with scale, you need to then try to pull back on those costs, which we will definitely do. We just got to hit, higher AUM numbers, and would like to see a little more stability in the price action.
Yeah, we're getting there. Again, I feel like that's just sort of a ETF education component tied into. So again, interesting in cannabis. All right.
Want to talk Chevron?
I do. I want to talk Maryland as well. But yes,
let's talk Maryland. It's
the anniversary.
Today is it?
It's the anniversary. Yes. So very exciting. Shout out to all the Marylanders out there. It's a lot of fun. I feel like doing the whole opening day thing. That was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
A year ago, which is wild. But overall feels like Maryland, and I know maybe a little bit biased because being in the state, but I feel like they've handled it very, very well.
Congrats to the citizens that voted it. Congrats to the governor who, endorses and supports it. I have not looked at anything like what has been the tax, benefit to the state. I've got to imagine it's been significant.
I think between January, I was looking at something, January and March, they've raised, I think, 14.6 million. So for tax, which has been great. But
that's awesome.
That's good stuff. Awesome. And Montgomery County is one of the top contributors to. So for anyone who's watching, that's Noah. That's he's doing all the heavy lifting on that. But yeah, so good stuff. I think overall, I think they're handling it very well. I know.
Yes, congrats, Marylander. What is I don't even know this, so I'm not asking as a quiz. What is our state motto? Do you know?
Maryland. I don't know. Something with crabs or something.
If there's bud on the flower, then let's party. Is that
party
our
for an
state
hour,
motto?
Something like that. I don't know.
All right.
Bonus questions if anyone can.
It's true. If you know the Maryland state motto, put it in the chat and I'll send you a hat of a ticker that I'm not allowed to mention.
Okay. That's exciting.
So, hey, Skip.
Whoever gets it first. There you go. It's good stuff.
Mackenzie forced me to be on.
I did.
Just kidding.
I did. You were slacking on Friday. Just kidding. You weren't.
So you want to go first? Like, what are you seeing? Or you want me to talk about what I'm seeing relative to this Chevron stuff? And again, I'll qualify. Not a lawyer. This is a layman's reading of it, and I still have a lot more to read to kind of figure these things out. And even when you read all the things that are in front of you and available, there's still going to be various conditions and clauses and things that make, different situations different.
Yes, sure.
But with all that as the caveat and the disclaimer,
I will double that caveat and say I also am still trying to figure it out. And it does seem like in general, there's still some uncertainty in terms of how it'll play out in terms of the actual impacts.
Yeah.
But does seem like it gives ultimately kind of Congress more power and kind of takes them away from the sort of general.
And I think that's the gist of it, right? It is to put the important, I guess, decision-making in the hands of elected officials, right? Yes. Representing the people, and not let unelected agencies make what are deemed important decisions.
Yes.
And what seemingly is this case is where laws are silent towards things. So the agency has to come up with an approach, which is really interesting because what I've heard them talking about it with other agencies and the examples they would give, I was like, oh, wow, that sounds a little bit like kind of what our experience is with the SEC, right? Most people don't really understand that you can't just call up the SEC and say, well, how do I build a mutual fund, right? Mm-hmm. They won't answer that question for you.
Sure.
They're in the rule enforcement business is what they are in. Yep. And hopefully if the rules are clear enough, right, they enforce the very clear ones. And then there are times where it's less clear, maybe like the crypto stuff, that they might insert themselves into that process. They might initiate, action, civil action, criminal action, not civil, against a person or a firm where it's unclear that they have that authority or discretion, right? And so that's, I guess, what they're trying to do, right? Is not let those unelected people make those really important decisions where the answer isn't clear by how the laws and the rules are set up. So
I think automatically make them make the decisions because they might have, still some weighing in potentially, but right. I think it doesn't just go to them ultimately. So it does kind of rearrange power.
And then I think SEC and crypto is an interesting example that I read is maybe one of those, right? It makes sense to me. And this is why, for those of you that have seen different things around different crypto coins or tokens, is it a security? Is it, whatever? Those definitions matter as it relates to securities laws and trying to figure out what definition it fits in. But again, for the most part, just because crypto didn't exist and kind of operates a little bit differently, and each of the cryptos actually also operate then a little bit differently in terms of how they work. Does it fit these rules or laws or not, right? And it's seemingly a bit unclear, and the guidance is unclear. Yet the SEC is engaged in a lot of enforcement around it, where it would just be great if someone would just tell people what the rules are. So instead of an enforcement agency enforcing what they view these unspoken rules are, you'd go to your politicians and desperately ask them to do their freaking jobs and say, let's focus in on this, right? And they have access to staffers and lawyers and all this stuff, and they can figure it all out, and they can say, yep, this is how the rules should change to accommodate it. This is what it should apply to. This is probably the things that for now, maybe it shouldn't apply to. These rules should evolve and change over time, especially as technology changes. But a lot of that doesn't happen, unfortunately. And so it's left to these agencies on how aggressive or not aggressive they want to be. And people, again, within our own industry, I think there's a view that the commodities regulatory CFTC is probably way more, I don't know.
Relax is not the right word.
Yeah, compared to something like the SEC in terms of who they go after and what's covered. Because remember, with things like Bitcoin, I would argue my view. In fact, we've said it on the show. It's digital baseball cards, right? It's a store of value, digital painting, maybe if there's a lack of a better phrase.
Sure.
There's only a certain number, and you and I can trade them at a price we can agree and negotiate on. I can put them out on a baseball card exchange and sell them that way if I want. I can go to Sotheby's. Is that the art auction house? I can take my art and auction it there.
Sure.
And if I paid $1 million for it and I'm lucky enough to sell it for $5 million, that was an awesome store of value. But if I only got my $1 million back, I guess that would be fine, because that means it's held its store of value.
Sure.
If it's only worth $1, apparently I probably bought the wrong painting.
Sure.
But the SEC doesn't oversee that, right? And the SEC doesn't oversee baseball trading cards. And so how would then Bitcoin be any different, even though they are clearly engaged in trying to oversee Bitcoin, at least from my perspective? So it's those kind of things, right? Why would you go after crypto or Bitcoin traders if you're not going after baseball card exchanges? Now, I get it. The breadth and the access and the everything else elevates the concern from a regulator's mind's perspective, which is good. It should. And those regulators should go, to the politicians when they meet with them periodically and say, you guys got to come up with rules that we can enforce, and don't just let us guess. So to me, that's the perfect example. What did I see another example? Oh, someone did another example of when it was, I think it was the FDA coming after someone who was selling like unpasteurized milk, but only like within a state. And it was the same thing, right? From at least according to who wrote this, from a scan of the rules, it says nothing about the FDA's ability to enforce something like that within a state where people are just making their own free choice. And so there's this extension of their oversight. There's this extension of their regulatory control that I guess this ruling is saying, not in all cases, but there could be cases to say that agency doesn't have the authority to bring that action, and that if they want that ability to bring that action, rules have to be changed and modified to make it very clear that that is something that they oversee.
Yeah. So they can't overreach or have their own ultimate interpretations. Yeah.
And so, when I look at what's going on with Schedule 3, and I got a lot more to read, but as I understand it, the rules actually do state, right, that the HHS and the DEA are the ones that can make that decision, and they have to go through a process to make that decision. Now, I don't know that the rules say what the process is that they have to go through, as much as it says they have the authority to make those decisions, right? So that's what I would want to know, because I think there was some guy, I forgot his name, that tagged me in a tweet or a post, and his view was that this was bad for cannabis. But I didn't comment for a while, but as I've looked at it more closely, I'm like, I'm getting an opposite view. I'm getting a different view that says if that agency is tasked by law to make these changes, they're allowed to make the changes. Now, if the law says you have to do this, 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 and this, because I think the guy was referring to some steps through the process that maybe HHS or DEA didn't follow. But I'm going to doubt, and again, just based off my knowledge of regulatory rules, that rules often say what your responsibility is or isn't, or, other things around that. But it doesn't say this is how you get it done. Because we run into that in our industry all the time. We can all do the same thing, but go around it in different ways and making different decisions. And so I don't see anything that says, oh, you've got agencies doing something, extending their reach in terms of authority. And it's also a weird reversal, right? Most of the time it's an agency going after someone, and it's whether or not that agency has the authority to go after someone where it's a bit unclear. This is different. This is an agency fixing something and not going after, quite frankly, anybody. And I get it. There are others, call it pharmaceutical industry for lack of a better description, or you're just anti-cannabis, that they will hate that change, but it's not an agency taking action on those people or those companies. It's just an agency doing from what I understand, is within their law-written ability to make these schedule changes. And again, I need to go read the law first to see, does it law say that you've got to do these 1 through 5 steps, or does the law say you have to have a process to, come to a reasonable conclusion and make these changes when you make them? So again, from many different aspects, I don't see an impact to Schedule 3. And then when you, to me, extrapolate it a little bit more, where it does feel like it's a bit unclear, and thinking about this whole situation where you've got companies that are operating illegally federally, but legally within the state. And we've talked about this, right? Well, why don't the feds just come in and bust them and take all those assets and have a big party because it's illegal at a federal level? And I think it is because there's this gray area, right? States have rights and they can do these certain rights. And as long as you're not pushing the cannabis across different states where it becomes a federal thing, they should be able to do that. And then begs the question of, should you tax them like they're doing something federal illegal? Because if they are doing something federal illegal, why aren't you going to arrest them, right? Yeah. And I think that was the view, if you remember, Clarence Thomas had, which was at some point, if the Fed's not acting on what would seem to be unclear authority, then they are telling you, in a sense, what their answer is, right? And so to me, then it questions the whole thing about 280E tax, which again, I know some are getting reimbursements for, and I think it has far more to do with medical than adult. But if there's a view that these states do have this right, if, an agency couldn't or shouldn't be able to go after you for guessing that this is something that falls under their jurisdiction or believing that it does, even though it's not clearly written, it seems like tie goes to the runner, meaning the business or the individual, and either politicians need to clarify the rules, or the agency, obviously, which is what they're going on through now, can obviously try to challenge that in court. And the Chevron case says that they're not going to be probably as successful in the future as they may have been in the past. So I think it's actually the opposite of this guy's view. I think it helps solidify Schedule 3, given the steps that they've gone through and following the procedures, as I understand it, relative to the law. And then 2, it shines a spotlight on this sort of questionable area of enforcement at a federal level and taxation at a federal level, and this punitive tax, because you are doing something illegal at a federal level, but you're really doing it legally at a state level, which should be legal at a federal level, because at a federal level, they should be enforcing the state's rights, not taking them away. Yeah. So I think it actually is highly, highly beneficial. But again, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, and we've got a big product. You should know my biases if someone happens across this video and hears that. And I've got a lot more to read about it, but nothing that I've seen, nothing that I've read has given me negative concerns. And it's the opposite. The things that I've read has given me more positive views that, these changes are likely coming, for this industry. And it won't surprise me. Hopefully we get something soon, but politicians will help put some clarification around that. So it's super clear for the agencies. They don't have to guess. People know how to operate. They know what they can and can't do. And those rules and regs are much more clear.
Yeah. I agree. I will say, tapping into one of the things that you said as well, I do think the fact that cannabis is, it's in a ton of states already, it's already here kind of thing. It's relatively popular. I know there are some people who don't like it, but I think with the scheduling, at least, that's the medical side of things. So I think it is the most uncontroversial version of pushing cannabis reform through. We've talked about in the past, scheduling is a really, really important step, but hopefully not the final step. There's still more to come. So I think it would not make sense, I think, to start reversing it anyway, kind of like you've tapped into. But
right.
I think that's important.
So I think it's positive, right? And I still don't have the legal understanding as to why the medical side might be more eligible for 280E relief than the adult use side, when, again, from what I understand, both are illegal at a federal level, right? So at the IRS, which is an agency, they have their view. But at the DEA or the DOJ, they have their view, which is they could go arrest you, presumably, right? But they don't. So in a weird sort of a way, you've got two federal agencies looking at it very differently. You have the IRS saying, well, we think you owe us taxes because what you're doing is bad. But then you've got DEA and DOJ, not in every instance, but for the ones that are operating legally, saying we're not coming in to do anything to you because we kind of recognize states have rights, and we probably shouldn't, even though in some instances they have. Sure. They seem to have picked and choose who they might have gone after, which, again, not good, very inconsistent, not fair.
Which is why you want that ultimate framework that is,
And so you want this ruling that says, hey, if it's not clear, these guys don't get to guess. Yeah. Politicians have to do their job. They have got to create laws and rules that for each agency to do that. And I think I've told this story too. A friend of mine for a period of time was IRS commissioner. And I remember, I didn't completely understand all the things that the IRS did, but he's like, the interesting thing about our role is, we don't make the rules, right? People complain to us about the tax laws and codes, and like, our job is just to enforce it. Yeah. We don't make them up. We don't do anything. So if you got a problem with, taxation and how it works, call your politician. And this is just reinforcing that. Totally makes sense to me. And we just need those politicians doing their job and spending less time worrying about their reelections and stuff.
Yeah. Well, we'll be on the other side of that soonish. I feel like November will be here tomorrow, pretty much. I feel like it'll fly by. So,
and I think it's a good thing, even when you think about, so you think, oh, something like this happens and maybe we're having a change of administration. I think, I mean, I get the impression both sides probably are supportive of this. So I don't, I mean, to me, it's still rainbows and sunshine.
Chugging along.
Except for the price action.
Except for, right now.
Except for Friday.
You're right. Slightly back green, but tough time Friday. So that makes sense. Okay. All right. Stevie has got the Maryland logo to bring it full circle.
Fatty, Mashi, Paroli, Femini.
Loosely translated.
Many deeds, many words.
Womanly words. Strong deeds,
all
gentle
state
words.
mottos?
Okay, interesting. The official state motto.
The motto of Calvert family.
Interesting.
Motto.
Very cool.
Is that right?
Okay. How to be Italian? It's interesting. All state motto. Right. Oh, from all state mottos, maybe. I don't think that's all state motto.
All right. That's a pretty boring state motto, it feels like.
Interesting that it's Italian too, I guess. Rather than Latin.
Interesting. Actually, that's what I noticed too in Montana. Either highway or town or something like that had some French names in there. So I don't know if that's a close to Canada thing or what, but that's kind of where some of them settled when they came to the U.S. or because it's certainly a lot of Indian territory. You see plenty of Indian type of names for rivers and locations, things like that. But I saw a few French things which stood out for me.
I think that makes sense. I do think Indians, Native Americans, they aligned better with the French. So I think there was a better sort of enmeshment there. So from what I understand, who knows?
Plus the French brought French fries. So that's kick ass.
Freedom fries, I prefer to call them.
There you go.
Do you remember that time? Crazy.
I do.
Yeah, what a time.
French.
All right. Well, what else is exciting and new? I feel like that's the main thing that we're heading into. We got 4th of July.
Market's up, right? Most of the price action, I got to look at the whole lineup, seems positive.
A short is positive today.
Which is awesome.
2 shorts are positive today.
Yep. Psychedelics industry price action is still very upsetting.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah. But otherwise, we'll take it. We'll take some green. We're marching towards some big milestones. I ordered some Curaleaf hemp beverages, which I'm shipping to your address because they can't ship to Maryland.
Which I still don't understand, but that's fine.
So we'll do a taster when those arrive. I did have this new device I wanted to show and share with you. That was a package that came in last week, by the way. And then I'm in my office setting it up, but I think it's broken. So I gotta.
Oh no! Wasn't it food? I thought it was.
No, that's different.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah. Those are like some crazy high protein bars, but like high enough protein and fresh ingredients and all that you can't just store them in the cabinet. You got to store them in the fridge and then eat them within a reasonable time.
Is it like meat bars, basically?
No,
heavy protein chicken bars?
No, they're like brownie this or chocolate cookie that. Right. So I think it's a lot of whey protein and maybe eggs, but don't hold me to it. Or dairy-based things in there. Maybe. Though actually, I might have seen that it was gluten-free. I don't know. I should read the instructions. I'll do a taste test for you on those.
I was going to say, you can do the Curaleaf drink, then taste test, and then sober taste test and see how they compare. Right. We'll see. I think Stevie's also doing a taste test. I know he was trying to get some order.
I saw that too. Yep. He was looking to order. I tried to order the sampler pack, and that either was sold out or it's still not available. So then I think it was 4 other flavors. One of the flavors was definitely sold out. And so I ordered 3, the other 3 flavors, so we can have a sampling.
Love it. Little flight. That'll be good. All right. Well, then we also have 4th of July coming up. We'll have, hopefully, I got to check in actually on some order status today, but we should have some fun little things coming in that we can do.
It is interesting too, when you think about from a cannabis perspective, because it's, probably a good weekend for them, for that industry. So looking forward to see those results in the 3rd quarter. Actually, no, that is the 3rd quarter. I won't see the results from 4th of July until 4th quarter, right?
Yeah. That's true.
I'm trying to think of what else I'm noticing. One is, so I get a lot of the emails, right, from the different stores around here. Definitely, I feel like there's a lot of pickup in marketing, more emails, more product pitches. Interestingly enough, pretty consistent discount offerings. I think I got the Curaleaf email today here locally is 30% off.
Nice.
So I don't know. It looks like they're just, continuing to get pick up the pace relative to marketing, relative to positioning, relative to incentives to get people in to take a look.
I do think now's sort of the time for that, just because, again, really having people understand and knowing who you are, what kind of products you have is so important. That's why I really think the hemp component is so important, because they're able to reach so many more markets and so many more people just because.
And I'd be going for sporting venues, the outdoor concert stuff. GTI and Rhythm do a great job at embracing, the branding around that.
Yeah.
And you can have obviously different brands for different types of people, right? Someone still needs to, embrace the branding of 70 and 80-year-olds, right? That are right. Absolutely.
Sure.
So just, I don't know. That's something I've been observing with a handful of these companies.
That's true.
I think we've got, everyone needs to be prepared that if we do start to get this good news and we do start to see a change in terms of the environment, there'll certainly be maybe some M&A activity going on. Two, don't be surprised that they've got to go out for some more capital and for growth. You just want to get a good return on that money that they're raising. So yeah, it should be interesting times. It feels like this third and fourth and first and second quarter, right? Get these things done, get through the Schedule 3, see what else there is. Because again, that's my big concern right now is I don't know if we're dealing with a Garland memo. I don't know if politicians are going to get their stuff together and get something passed. It probably will matter who wins the election, because then people will be in a panic to try to get some things through, and there'll be a lot of horse trading. So maybe something can happen positive with cannabis. I don't know. That's all wild speculation. But barring some real negative bombs, which again could happen, right? I could be wrong about every opinion that I've had on here. They're simply opinions and observations. And then that will just blow everything back up from relative to where I stand. But and I'd have to regroup to see what happens, right? But if Schedule 3 doesn't happen, right? So what does that mean? It sucks, right? But it doesn't mean GTI is going to sell less cannabis next quarter. They're going to sell more. And it doesn't mean that these companies aren't going to get some amount of money back from 280E, because they seemingly are. It'll just be back to the drawing board to get, more flexibility, more whatever. So
true. I will say cannabis companies, though, do seem pretty creative in terms of again, whether it's the hemp drinks, whether it's the Canadian listings. I feel like there's a ton of interesting stuff that they've been up to. International markets, those have been opening up. So I know some companies are differently set up to take advantage of that.
But more than anything else, I'll still stick to this point that I've been making hopefully for a while. We need custody and uplisting, right? So Schedule 3 for me isn't enough where, and I'm sure you'll see it on Twitter, be like, oh, we got Schedule 3 and the prices still suck. Well, if we only get Schedule 3, it's good, but it doesn't fix, the institutional access to these stocks. And so custody and uplisting has to be, resolved in some way.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. One step at a time. We're getting there. The dominoes.
I got my fingers crossed, legs crossed. I crossed my eyes for a while until someone said I could stay permanent.
It can. That's true. The Mayans used to do that to their kids.
Really?
Yeah. Apparently they
thought they do that?
Thought it was attractive to have cross-eyed. Who knows?
Did they always bump into stuff?
They might. That's why they are not around as much anymore. Who knows? Also, Stevie brings up a good point in terms of, I know we were talking 4th of July stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The pets aspect. I do wonder if we see a slight uptick in pet cannabis stuff, because
I saw, oh my God, that's actually a good point, which is a good marketing reminder, by the way, right? Yeah. So if you're a cannabis company, certainly market your product, but this is a great way to be pro pet and offer some education, right? Don't just push the product, but like, what does it mean to give this to the dog or cat? Yeah. How does it affect them? How long does it last? Like, be real specific, a real on hands video, right? You love how I'm giving them marketing advice. Also, don't take marketing advice from me.
Whatever. But how about work?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. I saw someone tweet. No, actually, it was in a Facebook group, I think. They suggested, one, just making sure you've got something on your dog or a dog collar, right? They had some blue that painter's tape. I don't know why they suggested that with writing down. I think because maybe it's also the ink will maybe stay on that kind of tape. I guess I don't know. Or maybe masking tape would work. I don't know. But just something, get some identification on your dog or cat or whatever, or ferret. I know you've got like a ferret and an iguana, I think is what you have.
That's pretty solid.
So get their leashes on them and their neck collars, right? But just make sure there's a phone number, make sure there's identifying information on it. Keep it on them if you can. I know some pets don't love collars on all the time. Yeah. But they're going to hear stuff and try to make a run for it possibly. And
but you can do cute stuff. I know, like Jane's for Winston, the little collar with the little tag on it. So you can do fun, cute tags, but they also have the info.
I like it.
Rather than masking tape or painter's tape, but you can do whatever you want. You're free to do whatever you want.
I like it. I like it.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Super
Thank you,
appreciate
everybody.
it. Tomorrow we're going to have Dan on. So talking a little bit more cannabis. We are coming up, I know, on a 4th of July holiday. So it's going to be a little bit of a quieter week, but we will be still here chatting through everything. We're also going to try to, oh, nice. Okay, that's good. We'll also try to put out some fun restaurant deals that are coming out for 4th of July as well. So hopefully that'll be fun for anyone out there.
There was a lot of meat eating out in Montana.
Meat eating? That makes sense. It's still, they got
steaks.
Buffalo or something out there.
I didn't eat any buffaloes. Come on, man.
I don't know.
I think they were just cows. There were actually cows on the land where the house was where we stayed. So I literally walked outside, not
that's your
6
burger?
feet, and it was fenced around, but like one was licking a little salt lick thing, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I kind of was trying to walk up to him and be friends.
Oh, that's sweet. How did it turn out?
He gave me the middle hoof finger and told me to leave.
Buzz off. Oh,
he looked real skittish. Like he was wagging his tail at first. I'm assuming it was a he.
Sure.
So I walk up to him like, "Hey, Cal, what's going on? Happy 4th, right?"
Yeah.
Just trying to bond with him.
Of course.
And like, I'm not going to eat you. Right?
Grass is great, right?
Yeah. But as I would get close to him, then he would like kind of almost like he's leaning back. And then I would stop. Then he'd go back to looking at it. And then he'd look at me and the tail was wagging. So I'd take another step. But then he would like back up. And then finally I was like, all right.
Oh,
you're a jerk.
You get your space.
Screw you. I'm eating you later.
Oh, no. Fair enough. All right. Seeing from Jane really quickly. Oh, that's so sad again as well.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
But it's good to see Winston he's indifferent. Nice. Doesn't care.
Good.
Hang with it. All right. Perfect. Well, stay tuned for tomorrow again. If you got any good questions for Dan, cannabis, any of that, we will definitely be here.
And the answer for Stevie is I did see elk, by the way.
See or eat?
Did not eat. I just saw them.
Okay. Nice. All right. Good stuff. All right. Well, join us tomorrow, same time. Siri is picking up my chat, which is interesting. So maybe it'll say something, but we will catch you guys.
What if it gives out your passcodes?
All right. Adios.
Show off.
All right. Thanks. All right. Bye. See you later.
Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at AdvisorShares.com.